Can second-term President Donald Trump legally use military forces to conduct domestic law enforcement activities? Starting with George Washington, more than a dozen presidents have deployed troops more than 24 times for law enforcement purposes. The most relevant federal law is the Sedition Act. In 1827, Supreme Court ruled that an earlier version law gave President exclusive authority decide whether a necessity requiring call-out of militia has arisen, and his decision is final to all other persons. Later versions law did not restrict presidents' authority decide whether an emergency exists. This power does not exist in a vacuum. It arises from the need for immediate action in response to events such as violent riots. For example, Supreme Court's 1827 opinion stemmed from War of 1812, when British Army invaded United States, and that statute stated that whenever United States is invaded or in imminent danger of occupation, Presidents it would be lawful for him to deploy militia if he judged it necessary to repel such an invasion. The main purpose of the law has always been to provide tools to combat violent insurgencies. President Washington invoked an early version of the law in 1794 to suppress the Whiskey Rebellion, which opposed federal excise taxes on domestically produced distilled spirits. Over next 2 centuries law was amended several times, but events that triggered its use often involved public violence. This includes efforts to oppress newly freed slaves in Reconstruction-era South, violent labor disputes between workers and strikebreakers in 19th and 19th centuries, riots the 20th century, and in our cities which police officers were acquitted of charges related to King's home beating hands. Unfortunately, current version of the law contains broad language that a president unconcerned with traditional political and normative constraints on executive authority could seek to exploit in absence of an actual rebellion or insurrection. The Insurrection Act allows the president to use the military in 3 situations. First, the law allows the president to send in troops when requested by a state government to suppress an insurrection. The state must request assistance from national government, but it is left to the president's discretion whether to accept request. Examples of what this might look like under a second Trump administration immediately come to mind. The governor of a red state in Texas, for example, might request that president send troops to patrol the Mexican border to control an insurrection caused by a flood of illegal immigrants against state government. In response, president may send in the armed forces, National Guard, or both. However, the president does not need to request government assistance to invoke the Insurrection Act. The law includes 2 sections that allow the president to take action even if the state rejects offers of federal aid. One section authorizes use of armed forces to